The most important thing to know about the Egyptian army is that apart from being the biggest military force in the Middle East, it's also Egypt's biggest and richest business conglomerate. Behind the tanks and the guns, it has massive interests in manufacturing, agriculture and real estate. It owns resort hotels and factories that make everything from cars to dishwashers to olive oil. Some estimates say it makes up more than 10% of the country's economy. And if these soldiers rise high enough in the ranks, they know they'll be rewarded for their loyalty with a healthy slice of the action. The military has been the power behind the throne for 60 years.
People say the regime has fallen. I argue the president has fell. The regime has not, because the regime that has ruled Egypt for the past 60 years is still, or has been, the military establishment, which continues to control the situation today in Egypt. So effectively, the structure is the same.
And it has the most to lose if Egypt moves to a democratic system of government. So why is it that the Egyptian people are so prepared to let the army take over their revolution? And why do they trust them to keep their promises? Well, not everyone does.
The people lost some confidence in the army, especially since Wednesday and Thursday when the lynch mob, basically the doors were open for the lynch mob to come and attack the people here in Tahrir. And they continued supporting the president until now.
Mohammed was helping his fellow protesters clean up Tahrir Square on the weekend, but unlike most of them, he's not planning on leaving just yet.
So we want to see the process beginning, so that we have tranquility in our hearts, that we can leave the Midan. Everyone knows that if anything goes wrong, or if they try to do any snake work, we're going to come right back.
It's hard to overstate just how popular the army is in Egypt. Most importantly, it's never turned its guns on the people. And in the Middle East, that's a proud claim to make. Egyptians have long felt that if their government ever turned on them, it would be the army that saves them. So when the police disappeared from the streets in January and the army arrived, they were welcomed as heroes.
These are the real men, the biggest sacrifices, the heroes.
Some individual soldiers even joined the protests. But the beginning of the end for Hosni Mubarak was when the army commanders publicly supported the people's demands and promised not to fire on them. Now it's over. And long-time democracy activists like Hisham Kassem still can't quite believe it's happened.
I'm still absorbing it. I still am. I choke sometimes when I think about it. Yeah, amazing. I've always worked hard for this, but today, for the first time in my life, I'm proud to be Egyptian. I really am. I love the way we did it. Peaceful.
Hisham Kassem was the publisher of Egypt's largest daily newspaper until 2006. But for 20 years, he's been one of the few vocal opponents of the Mubarak regime. So, does he trust the army to keep its word?
I do, yes. The only other option is bloodshed. If the military try and stay in power, you know, as a de facto governing council. My forecast or my analysis, definitely not. It's too much. It's not something anybody can handle. See? It just won't pass by. Egypt has changed after January 25.
But the army's leadership has not. Field Marshal Mohammed Hussein Tantawi is 80 years old, and as head of the army, he also chairs the military council that will now rule Egypt until it holds democratic elections. Again, he seems an unlikely choice. Leaked cables have described him as Mubarak's poodle, resistant to change, and without the energy or worldview to do anything other than maintain the status quo. Yet 4 times in the past week, he's promised the Egyptian people that all of their demands will be met and on time. Tariq Osman believes the army will simply be unable to go against the momentum for change.
It is supported by tens of millions in the massive block, demographic block of the Egyptian middle class. A clash, even if it's only psychological clash between the military and these aspirations of the millions in the middle class, in my view, is unlikely.
Egyptians might seem comfortable with the huge change they're about to undertake, but some of their neighbours are not. In Israel, the talk has all been about what happens when the Islamist Muslim Brotherhood becomes the next ruling party of Egypt.
I can't tell you how much time I spent explaining, okay, to different American administrations, diplomats, etc., that is not the case, that the Brotherhood have been trying to get to power for 82 years and they have failed, that they are there because Mubarak is preventing people like me from going out in the street, okay, but they're working through mosques. Mubarak was not able to close mosques, so that became the clear, visible opposition of Mubarak. Okay?
And he says Israel can stop worrying that its peace treaty with Egypt is about to be torn up.
We will prove to the world, okay, that this is not a radically Islamic country, that we refuse to be identified politically as Muslims, okay? This is our religion, not our political affiliation. And I guess that's the only way we're going to diffuse that fear.
But for Egyptians like Mohammed Sarag, the focus will be much closer to home.
And so we want to make sure that that corruption is not going to seep back in and destroy what we've done so far. So we want to maintain our strength and momentum to make sure that nothing will seep through the cracks.